You done well.
Spread your wings. Nothing is impossible, believe.
What you mean?
If I can do it, you can spread your wings.
Do it.
Nothing is impossible. If I can do it, you can spread your wings. Blessing off a flow like a river. 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 That for them for know some man a leader. Shut at them ready for president.
What I want to talk about today is hustling. Being a hustler. What does that mean? You hear that a lot of times. A lot of people are talking about hustling. You know, you can have it in different songs. Jay-Z talks about I'm a hustler. Cassidy put it in his song. What is a hustler? I want to talk about that. I also want to talk about why it is that you can't be a consummate hustler. Why, you know, in order for you to grow, you need to develop into an entrepreneur and exactly what that means. And so there are a number of reasons why it is that people aren't out here making money. And the truth is that we are at a stage in the history of the world where you have access to everyone on the planet. That's the level of connectivity that is. That means that everyone is able to start doing their own businesses. And it's not that you have to sell widgets. There's a lot of knowledge and information that's within your own head that others need. For the most part, for example, you are imparting your knowledge if you have children on your children, and that is a valuable source of information. And so there are multiple things that throughout what we have, I'm going to teach you how to productize your knowledge. But right now, what I want to talk about is specifically, you know, one of the reasons that you are not out here making money and why you should be, and that is hustling. Another big one is going to be fear. We'll tackle that in another video, but that's actually probably the biggest one. But right now we're going to talk about hustling. A hustler is someone who has in their mindset the need to go out and make money. They are trying to figure out every day, how do I bring money in? A lot of times that's born out of necessity, right? You have to bring in money, you have to pay the rent, you have to eat. So you go out here and figure out how to do it. And a lot of hustling is associated with criminal activity because a lot of times, you know, what you have to do to make sure you bring money in has been deemed by society to be illegal. Sometimes rightfully so, because you probably are, you know, bringing harm to another person. But the issue is that what you need to understand is that hustling is somebody who wakes up and feels like, I've got to figure out how to make that money. And they're out here. They have pushed back fear. They have pushed back the potential for how they may look. And that's one of the sources of the biggest fears. How do I look to other people? Social anxiety, right? They pushed that back and said, you know what, I got to figure out how to go and do it. They're out here in the streets talking to whomever because the fact is that they have to come in and make money. One of the biggest things about the hustler is not only have they escaped the fear of the social anxiety of having to go out and talk to people and do whatever it takes to bring money in, is they also have consciously or unconsciously knowledge that this is about numbers. They have no other choice, right? They have to come out and do it over and over and over again, and eventually they get what they're looking for. I mean, if you think about it, someone who's a panhandler is also a hustler, right? I mean, that's out of necessity. They come in, they are at the street corners. They know that probably 9 times out of 10, even more than that, 99.99% of the times, you know, people are not going to give them money, but they have to be there hours on end, you know, asking for the dollar. And eventually they make enough to eat for that day or whatever the case may be. Same thing with, you know, the drug deal on the street corner. They're out there for hours on end, grinding, hustling, making sure that they are bringing that money in because out of necessity, they need to do that in order to feed themselves. And sometimes maybe just, you know, like Meek Mill said, polo and some shell tops. Whatever the case is, that person is out here hustling, trying to make sure that they're bringing the money in. And so the issue though with a hustler is a lot of times, this is not always the case, a lot of times the hustler is only thinking about that day? How much money can I bring in that day? How much money for this particular idea that I want to get, whether it's that polo in the shell top? Entrepreneur has to think longer term. And in thinking longer term, one of the biggest things that has to shift within a hustler's mindset to an entrepreneur's mindset is that they have to now start focusing on one thing. See, the hustler is out here looking for whatever may work. What's the next thing that could happen? Trying to scoop everything off of the table. And as a result, before the result, one of the reasons they do that is because they're like, listen, if the money is available, I'm going to take it. That's precisely what makes them a hustler. That's precisely the mindset that makes them go out and do it. The fact is that in order to grow, you have to become excellent. You have to become excellent at one thing. You have to know it in and out. You have to understand the nuances of that one thing. You have to know your person, the customer that you're selling to. You have to know the product, such that you're doing it so much better and you're doing it so much more efficiently that your knowledge and the work that you put in day and day out starts to accumulate. And when it starts to accumulate, that's when you start to be able to, reap the real benefits from it. And not, making nickel and dime here and there, and not actually building, not creating a foundation that you can build on top of and scale. And so that's why it's important. Like first and foremost, a lot of people don't even have the hustle mentality. They're like, oh my God, the fear of how I'm going to look, how I'm going to be judged by people, makes them not go out and actually go and pursue whatever it is that they need to go and do. That's number one. If you have that hustler's mentality, which is a necessity if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you've got that, and a lot of people do, the reason you're not growing, the reason you're not selling is because you are trying to get everything. And you cannot see what those numbers are telling you because you haven't accumulated enough in one particular direction. You're getting some information because you've done this. You're getting some information because you've done this. You get some information because you've done this, but they haven't gotten enough sample data so that you can now start to analyze and say, here's what it's telling me about which direction I should go. Here's how I can shift here and there so that I can take advantage of whatever it is that the market is telling you is happening so that you can actually grow in that particular direction. So in order to shift from your hustler's mentality, you've got to figure out how it is that you are going to, focus on one thing. And this is, part of what, we're going to talk about in a series of other videos. First, it's figuring out what you're selling, what's your product, what it is that you're selling, and then it's going to be how it is that you're going to actually sell it and get some information back so that you can grow. But those are going to be other videos that we'll talk about. We'll tackle later.